The invitation arrived when the sun was setting over the crystalline spires of New Geneva, casting long shadows across the cityscape. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood in her office, her eyes fixed on the shimmering holographic message that had been looping endlessly for the past hour. The message was from the Galactic Concordat, a name that in diplomatic circles carried as much fear as fascination. Their sudden interest in Earth, after 2 centuries of cold indifference, triggered every alarm bell in Sarah's well-trained instincts. The words of High Speaker Zelen filled the room once again as the hologram replayed. His towering figure covered in iridescent scales glowed softly in the fading light. People of Earth, the Galactic Concordat extends its hand in fellowship. Your species has shown remarkable progress, and we believe the time has come to welcome you into our ancient alliance. We offer knowledge, technology, and protection. All we ask is peaceful cooperation and mutual respect. Sarah muted the recording, her lips pressed into a tight line. 25 years in the diplomatic corps had taught her that nothing in the universe came free, least of all from a civilization that had watched humanity struggle through its infancy. Without so much as a greeting, "Play it again," she commanded her AI assistant, and the message replayed while Sarah's mind raced. She did not trust the Concordat, not for a moment. Compile all known Concordat, first contact protocols with other species over the last millennium. She ordered processing. Ambassador, the AI responded. Moments later, the walls of her office transformed into a glowing timeline. Sarah stepped closer, her heart pounding as the data became clear. Every civilization the Concordat had contacted followed the same pattern. At first, there was prosperity, a golden age fueled by Concordat technology and trade. Then came the slow depletion of resources, economic entanglement, and dependency. One by one, proud civilizations had been reduced to little more than client states, their autonomy sacrificed for survival. Sarah's stomach twisted into a knot. The door chimed a soft, polite sound. "Enter," she called, not taking her eyes off the timeline. Admiral James Harrison strode into the room, his expression grim. "You have seen it too, have you?" he asked. Sarah nodded slowly. "They are not looking for allies, Admiral," she said quietly. "They are looking for vassals. The Security Council meets in an hour." Harrison said, "What is your recommendation?" "Accept their invitation," Sarah replied without hesitation. Harrison's eyebrows shot up in shock. "You cannot be serious." "Oh, I am very serious," Sarah said, a small smile touching her lips. "But we accept on our terms, not theirs. And while we smile and negotiate, we prepare." "Prepare for what?" Harrison asked. "For the moment they realize humanity is not as naive as they think," Sarah said, her voice steely. From the wide window of her office, Sarah watched the silver streaks of ships belonging to a dozen Earth nations moving through the atmosphere. Like graceful fish, they had spent 2 centuries being ignored by the galactic community. 2 centuries building their strength, developing their technology, and most importantly, learning to stand united. Harrison moved to stand beside her. "The Concordat's fleet is fast," he warned. "If this goes wrong, it is going to go very wrong," Sarah interrupted. "That is exactly what we are counting on. They expect us to either reject their offer and remain isolated, or accept and slowly submit. They do not expect us to have a third option." Sarah activated her secure communicator, linking directly to the highest levels of Earth's government. "This is Ambassador Chen," she said. "Implement protocol Trojan Horse authorization. Chen Alpha 79 Delta." Across the planet, hidden facilities sprang to life. Asteroid bases that officially did not exist lit up with activity. Underground bunkers long abandoned to the public eye thrummed with the energy of ships powering up. 2 centuries of preparation born out of paranoia and hope alike were about to pay off. Send our response to the Concordat, Sarah ordered. Tell them Earth is honored by their invitation and requests a formal delegation to discuss terms of admission. The message sped across light years to the waiting Concordat fleet. As the transmission left Earth's secure communications array, Sarah turned back to Admiral Harrison. How long until the 7th Fleet can be ready? The official 7th Fleet, Harrison asked. 2 weeks. The real one, Sarah inquired. It has been ready for years, Harrison replied. Sarah nodded her satisfaction. Good, she said, because we are about to teach the Concordat a lesson about underestimating humanity. The sun finally dipped below the horizon, casting New Geneva into shadow. Sarah smiled, knowing that, across the vast reaches of space, the Concordat was about to learn a hard truth. Humanity had never been alone by circumstance. They had been alone by choice. They had used their isolation wisely, and now the game was about to begin at the edge of the solar system. The Concordat's diplomatic vessel emerged from hyperspace. A spectacle of technological arrogance, its crystalline hull refracted the sunlight into 1,000 brilliant rainbows. Aboard the Edemus Earth's premier diplomatic vessel, Sarah Chen watched their approach behind her. A team of elite analysts monitored every detail, every energy signature, every movement. Not a single piece of data escaped their scrutiny. Ambassador Lieutenant Maya Patel called from her station. We are detecting significant scanning activity from their ship, deeper than diplomatic protocols allow. Sarah nodded. Let them scan, she said calmly. They will only see what we want them to see. Decades of research had gone into Earth's deception technologies. The Concordat would see a technologically impressive Earth, but still primitive enough to seem manageable to controllable. The main view screen flickered to life, and High Speaker Zelen appeared again in full alien splendor. His voice, rich and grand, echoed. Across the chamber, Ambassador Chen, he said with a deep inclination of his head, we are honored to meet you. The honor is ours, High Speaker. Sarah replied, matching his bow to the precise degree their cultural dossiers prescribed. Earth awaits the opportunity to learn from the Concordat's vast experience. Even as the formal greetings continued, Sarah's neural implant buzzed with encrypted updates. Hidden sensors positioned in the shadow of Saturn were tracking 3 cloaked Concordat vessels, conducting covert surveys of the solar system. They were mapping Earth's infrastructure, military sites, and resource hubs. Sarah kept her expression neutral, but inside her mind raced as the pieces of the Concordat's strategy fell into place. The High Speaker continued, we have prepared a detailed proposal for Earth's integration into the Concordat, including advisory positions within your governments and establishment of military bases to ensure your protection. Sarah kept her tone curious as she responded, buying time for her analysts to decode the data streams from the enemy vessels. The hidden sensors confirmed what Sarah had feared. The Concordat was preparing for military action if diplomacy failed. Sarah's heart hardened as she considered her next words. Earth had no choice but to walk the knife edge of diplomacy and subterfuge. High Speaker Sarah said, tilting her head slightly before we proceed, I would appreciate clarification on a few points. She gestured and a holographic map appeared, revealing the exact positions of the hidden Concordat ships. Zelen froze, scales dulling with shock. I do not understand, he stammered. There must be some mistake. No mistake, High Speaker Sarah said smoothly. We have been tracking your ships since their arrival. The diplomatic mask Sarah wore fell away, revealing cold iron underneath. Now shall we discuss the real terms of our relationship with the Concordat? The High Speaker clacked his mandibles in agitation. You dare, he hissed. We dare quite a lot, Sarah replied firmly. Back in the asteroid belt, Admiral Harrison stood at the heart of humanity's true fleet, a force built in secret and hidden from all alien eyes. Ships that combined human innovation with salvaged alien technology power, up silently under the command of the Shadow Fleet Commander Diana Rodriguez, reported that the fleet was at 98% readiness. The Concordat remained blind to their presence. "Shadow Fleet is ready," Harrison confirmed grimly. Now it was a waiting game. Sarah had to maneuver the Concordat into making the first move. Only then could Earth reveal its true strength. On the main tactical display, Earth's analysts watched the Concordat begin launching what they thought were undetectable probes toward major Earth cities. Harrison gritted his teeth. They think they are invisible. They think they are in control. He shook his head in dark amusement. They are about to learn otherwise. Ambassador Chen called across the secure channel. High Speaker Zelen had just issued an ultimatum. Accept the Concordat's terms, or face destruction. Sarah's response was cool, amused, even. "High Speaker, you misunderstand," she said. "We are not refusing your terms out of arrogance. We are refusing them because we have better options." Zelen sneered. "You have no options. Your defenses are crippled. Your doom is assured." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "You have seen what we allowed you to see," she said. "You have attacked illusions, holograms, decoys. All the while we have been watching, studying, and waiting. A first Concordat attack struck a decoy installation in the Nevada desert. A brilliant beam of energy vaporized what appeared to be a shield generator. In reality, it was an empty stretch of sand. Phase 1 is complete," Harrison said. "All ships prepare for Phase 2. Weapons hot, but maintain stealth until my mark." As the Concordat fleet launched its second strike wave, believing victory was imminent, Earth's true forces moved into position, cloaked, invisible, deadly, ready to spring the trap that had been centuries in the making. And Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Edimus calm, unwavering, the architect of Earth's long-awaited re-emergence into the galactic stage. Across the solar system, preparations moved quietly but relentlessly. Hidden bases on asteroids, long thought barren by alien scans, powered up underground bunkers beneath the surface of the Earth, hummed with energy. Starships that officially did not exist awakened from their silent slumber. Admiral James Harrison stood in the heart of the Shadow Command Center, deep within the asteroid belt, surrounded by holographic displays showing the hidden fleet's status. His weathered face bore a grim smile. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Commander Diana Rodriguez, his second in command, stepped forward. Shadow Fleet at 98% readiness. Sir, all systems functioning within optimal parameters. Quantum stealth field stable and holding. The Concordat vessels remain unaware of our presence. Harrison nodded. Excellent, maintain silent running. We wait for Ambassador Chen's signal. Meanwhile, aboard the diplomatic vessel, Edimus Ambassador Sarah Chen prepared for her meeting with the High Speaker. She adjusted her formal uniform, her mind already racing ahead, calculating possibilities, contingencies. She had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. Humanity had spent centuries preparing for this moment. It was more than just a negotiation. It was a performance, a delicate dance of words and hidden knives. The Concordat vessel approached Earth's orbit, a shimmering beacon of alien splendor. Its crystalline structure refracted the sunlight into dazzling patterns, a clear display of technological might. But Sarah knew better. She knew that those who flaunted their strength so openly often did so to hide their fear. Lieutenant Maya Patel at the sensor station called out, "Ambassador, we are detecting extensive scanning activity. They are probing far deeper than is customary for diplomatic missions." Sarah nodded, her expression unreadable. "Let them scan," she said. They will find only what we wish them to find. Earth's deception technologies had been refined over decades. The image presented to the Concordat was of a vibrant but still manageable civilization, impressive enough to warrant interest, but not advanced enough to seem threatening. Hidden beneath layers of electronic camouflage were the real weapons, the real defenses ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. The main view screen came to life. High Speaker Zelen appeared once again, his iridescent scales catching the light. His mandibles moved in what their xenologists had identified as a gesture of goodwill. "Ambassador Chen," he said, "we are honored to meet humanity in person. The honor is ours." High Speaker Sarah replied, bowing with precise cultural correctness. Earth welcomes the opportunity to learn from the Concordat's wisdom. As they exchanged formalities, Sarah's neural implant buzzed with encrypted updates. Sensors hidden around Saturn were detecting cloaked Concordat vessels conducting aggressive scans and maneuvers, mapping mining operations, tracking military assets. Probing Earth's defenses, Sarah kept, her face serene, but inside her mind sharpened like a blade. "We have prepared a proposal for Earth's integration into the Concordat." Zelen continued, "Our analysts suggest a 10-year transition period during which we will establish advisory positions within your governments and military institutions purely to assist you in your growth," he said, mandibles clicking softly. "Advisory positions," Sarah repeated, as if considering it inside. She ticked off another red flag. Their real goal was clear subjugation, not partnership. "We would also establish several military bases," Zelen added casually, "for your protection, of course. The galaxy can be a dangerous place for emerging civilizations." Her implant buzzed again. Quantum communication bursts detected between the cloaked ships near Mars, coordinating tactical data. The Concordat was preparing for a possible strike if diplomacy failed. Sarah smiled politely. "That is very generous, High Speaker," she said, "though I wonder if perhaps a more gradual approach would be more beneficial to both parties." She needed to keep him talking, to give her analysts time to finish decoding the transmissions. Zelen leaned forward, his tone shifting subtly. "You must understand, Ambassador, the security of Earth depends on swift compliance. The galaxy is becoming increasingly unstable. We would hate for your world to be left vulnerable." The threat was clear, delivered with a velvet glove. Sarah's implant buzzed once more. The decrypted message revealed the truth. The Concordat's hidden ships were mapping strategic targets on Earth's surface, power grids, communication hubs, defense centers, preparing for a coordinated first strike. "I understand completely," Sarah said, allowing just the right amount of concern to tint her voice. Earth would never want to seem ungrateful. The High Speaker relaxed, visibly confident he had cowed the humans into submission. Sarah Chen almost pitied him. "Excellent," Zelen said. "We can begin the first phase of integration immediately. Our advisory teams are ready to disembark." "Before we proceed," Sarah said with a smile, "I wonder if you might clarify something for me." She gestured, and the Adamus AI projected a holographic map of the solar system, including the precise locations of the Concordat's hidden ships. The color drained from Zelen's iridescent scales. "I do not understand. There must be some mistake." "No mistake," High Speaker Sarah said evenly. "We have been tracking your ships since their arrival." The mask dropped from her face, and her voice hardened. "Shall we discuss the real terms of our relationship, the ones that do not involve Earth becoming another Concordat client?" State Zelen's mandibles clacked in outrage. "You dare," he spat. "We dare quite a lot," Sarah said calmly, "and you are about to discover just how much." Back in the asteroid belt, Admiral Harrison stood ready, watching as Shadowfleet came online, silently surrounding the unsuspecting Concordat forces. hundreds of stealth warships, activated quantum drives, shields, charged weapons, powered up yet to alien sensors. The system remained serene, undisturbed. On the tactical display, Concordate vessels continued their preparations, launching probes toward Earth's major cities, tracking resource nodes, military bases, all according to their invasion playbook. Every move they made was anticipated, accounted for. Signal from Ambassador Chen. Commander Rodriguez reported, "The High Speaker has rejected our terms. They are moving to initiate their backup plan." Harrison allowed himself a grim smile. "Right on schedule." He said, "Begin Operation Shadow Phase 1. Rodriguez nodded, relaying the command throughout the hidden fleet. Quantum stealth fields kept them invisible, not just visually, but to every known sensor array. Earth's researchers had found ways to bend space-time itself, rendering the fleet undetectable until it chose to strike back aboard the Artemis. Sarah listened to the High Speaker's ultimatum. "Accept our terms now or face annihilation," Zelen declared, his voice dripping with contempt. Sarah smiled a smile that never reached her eyes. "High Speaker, I believe you misunderstand," she said. "We are not rejecting your offer out of arrogance. We are rejecting it because we have better options." "You have no options," Zelen snarled. "Our ships are in position. Your defenses are already falling." Sarah leaned forward slightly, her voice calm and deadly. "High Speaker, have you ever wondered why Earth restricted mining around Saturn's rings?" Zelen blinked, his mandibles twitching in confusion. "Your primitive environmental restrictions are hardly relevant," he said. "Actually," Sarah interrupted, "they are very relevant, Admiral Harrison, if you would." Across the solar system, hidden ships revealed themselves, dropping their cloaking fields around Saturn, the asteroid belt, and even from concealed hangars on the moon, where once the Concordate saw only empty space. Now hundreds of human warships emerged, sleek, angular vessels, armed with weapons beyond anything the Concordate had imagined. Quantum torpedoes, railguns, energy weapons, tuned specifically to exploit Concordate shielding weaknesses. Zelen's jaw dropped in disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. "Your species only achieved spaceflight 2 centuries ago." 2 centuries you spent ignoring us," Sarah corrected. 2 centuries we spent preparing on his tactical display. Concordate ships began detecting human vessels surrounding them, cutting off retreat paths, targeting critical systems. Zelen screamed orders into his comms, but it was already too late. Admiral Harrison watched as the Concordate vessels panicked, scrambling to regroup, but finding themselves trapped, boxed in by a fleet they never knew existed. "Target strategic weak points," Harrison ordered. "Do not waste ammunition. Strike to disable Earth's." Ships moved with ruthless precision. Quantum torpedoes and hyper-velocity slugs tore through the Concordate's formations, bypassing shields with terrifying efficiency. Back on the Artemis, Sarah watched dispassionately as the battle unfolded. Every Concordate move had been anticipated, every vulnerability meticulously studied, every tactic countered before it was even deployed. "High Speaker Zelen," Sarah said, "your forces are outmaneuvered, outgunned, and surrounded. You have 2 choices: order your ships to stand down and negotiate with Earth as equals, or continue this futile resistance and be destroyed." Zelen stared at her in horror, his once majestic fleet crippled around him. His voice was broken when he finally spoke. "You are not what we thought you were," he said. "No," Sarah agreed. "Are not." Behind her, Admiral Harrison stood tall, a silent testament to the centuries of sacrifice, planning, and determination that had led to this moment. Humanity had not survived its isolation out of weakness. It had thrived and evolved. It had prepared. Now the galaxy would learn that Earth was not to be conquered, not to be patronized, but to be respected. The age of shadows was ending, and the era of humanity had begun. The moment had arrived. All the years of planning, all the sacrifices made in the shadows were about to culminate in a single definitive action. Admiral James Harrison stood at the center of the command room, aboard the hidden flagship of Shadow Fleet, deep within the asteroid belt. Around him, the operations team worked with silent precision, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of holographic tactical displays. Every ship in the fleet was ready, weapons charged, shields at maximum stealth fields, still holding strong. On the main screen, the Concordate vessels could be seen moving into their attack formations, their commanders unaware that every one of their maneuvers was being tracked, analyzed, and countered. The arrogance of the Concordate was staggering. Harrison thought they truly believed they were about to crush a primitive species with ease. They had no idea what awaited them. Commander Diana Rodriguez approached her, expression hard. "Sir," she reported, "Concordate vessels are powering up their primary weapons. They are targeting what they believe are critical defense nodes around the planet." Harrison nodded. "Let them proceed," he said. "We need them fully committed to their attack plan before we strike." Meanwhile, aboard the diplomatic vessel, Edemis Ambassador Sarah Chen maintained her calm facade as High Speaker Zelen continued to issue threats, veiled behind flowery language and false offers of mercy. Sarah knew better than to be swayed by such tactics. The Concordate was moving according to script, exactly as predicted, Ambassador Chen, the High Speaker, intoned. "This is your final warning. Accept our guidance, accept our protection, or face destruction." Sarah offered a polite smile. "High Speaker, I appreciate your concern for our safety, but I assure you Earth is more resilient than you may realize." On the tactical displays aboard the Edemis and aboard Shadow Fleet Command, the evidence of the Concordate's preparations was unmistakable. Probes had been launched targeting key infrastructure. Strike points had been mapped. Weapons were charged. Shields were raised. All signs pointed to an imminent first strike, and then it came. The Concordate's flagship fired a massive energy beam aimed directly at a supposed defense hub near Nevada's deserts. On their sensors, it would appear as a successful strike, a devastating blow against human military capability. But in reality, the beam had hit nothing more than an elaborate holographic decoy, the real defense installation safely hidden far underground. Beyond the reach of alien scans, Phase 2, Initiate Harrison commanded without raising his voice. Across the vast expanse of the asteroid belt, hundreds of ships began to move their quantum stealth fields, keeping them invisible as they encircled the Concordate fleet. The Concordate ships, emboldened by their apparent success, launched a second wave of attacks, targeting what they believed were planetary shield generators, defense centers, communication hubs, all the while unaware that every shot was wasted. Every target false, every action anticipated. Ambassador Chen watched the High Speaker gloat over supposed victories. "High Speaker," she said, her voice steady, "in all your scans of our system, did you never wonder why certain areas remained off limits to mining operations?" Zelen sneered. "Primitive superstition is hardly a defense mechanism." Sarah allowed herself a small chuckle. "No, High Speaker, it is not superstition, it is preparation." With a gesture, she signaled Admiral Harrison to proceed with Phase 3. In orbit around Saturn, what appeared to be simple rings of ice and rock shifted, revealing hidden hangars and shipyards, cloaked installations now dropping their stealth fields. Thousands of human warships emerged from their concealment, sleek, deadly vessels, equipped with weapons designed specifically to counter Concordate technology. The reaction aboard the Concordate flagship was instant panic, confusion, disbelief. On his displays, Zelen saw Earth forces materialize seemingly from nowhere. Hundreds of ships armed with weaponry far beyond what he had been led to expect. Impossible, Zelen whispered, staring in horror. You cannot have built this in secret, Sarah smiled sadly. 2 centuries you spent ignoring us. High Speaker, she said. 2 centuries we spent preparing. The Shadow Fleet engaged with ruthless efficiency. Quantum torpedoes streaked through space targeting weak points. In the Concordat vessels, precisely mapped vulnerabilities based on decades of intelligence gathering Earth's ships, moved with speed and coordination that the Concordat commanders could not comprehend, attacking from angles that defied standard combat doctrines, appearing and disappearing in flashes of motion too fast to track. Within minutes, the battle shifted from a confident Concordat assault to a desperate defense. Concordat ships that had once been symbols of galactic dominance now found themselves crippled, disabled, systematically dismantled by an enemy they had underestimated in the command center aboard. Shadow Fleet flagship Admiral Harrison monitored the battle reports. Ship after ship of the Concordat forces were rendered powerless, not through brute force, but through surgical precision. Strike teams disabled engines, weapon systems, and shields, leaving the enemy adrift, helpless. Commander Rodriguez reported status update. Sir, over 70% of Concordat strike force disabled remaining vessels, attempting to regroup Earth casualties. Minimal. Harrison nodded approvingly. Maintain pressure, push them into surrender back aboard the Edemus. Sarah Chen maintained diplomatic formality, even as the High Speaker visibly crumbled under the weight of his defeat. High Speaker, she said calmly, you have a choice. Order your ships to stand down and negotiate as equals, or continue this futile battle and face total annihilation. Zelen looked around him, saw the shattered remnants of his fleet, watched as human warships held positions of dominance throughout the battlefield, and realized the truth. Humanity was not the naive civilization they had assumed. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. You are not what we thought you were, he said hoarsely. No, Sarah agreed. We are not behind her. The full might of Earth's hidden preparations stood revealed. Every ship, every weapon, every strategy meticulously crafted over generations for this exact scenario. And now the Concordat had learned the hard way that humanity did not seek conquest, nor submission, but respect earned not by words, but by readiness, by strength, by unwavering resolve. The High Speaker sagged in his seat, his confidence shattered. High Speaker Sarah pressed gently. Earth does not seek to dominate or destroy. We seek partnership. We seek respect. The choice remains yours. Slowly, with great reluctance, Zelen gave the order to his surviving forces to stand down. Across the solar system, Concordat vessels powered down their weapons, opened their communication channels, and signaled surrender. In the command room of Shadow Fleet, Admiral Harrison allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. The years of preparation, the secrecy, the sacrifices had been worth it. Commander Rodriguez approached. Sir, incoming communication from Ambassador Chen. She requests confirmation of ceasefire status. Harrison smiled. Tell her the Concordat has seen the light. Across the galaxy, the ripple effects of the confrontation would be felt for generations. A primitive species had stood against one of the most powerful empires in existence, and not only survived, but forced a change in the established order. And they had done it not through brute force alone, but through careful planning, through unity, through the wisdom to know when to strike and when to offer a hand in peace. As the human fleets moved into secure formation and began assisting Concordat survivors as a gesture of good faith, a new era was beginning, an era in which humanity would no longer be ignored or underestimated. Sarah Chen stood aboard the Edemus, watching the aftermath unfold, knowing that this was only the beginning. The true work would come next. forging alliances, rebuilding trust, reshaping the future of galactic politics. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of quiet pride. Humanity had awakened, humanity had endured, humanity had triumphed, and nothing would ever be the same again. 1 month after the confrontation that had changed the course of galactic history, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the Grand Assembly of the Galactic Concordat. The chamber, designed to intimidate visitors with its sheer scale, now held an unfamiliar atmosphere. There was no longer condescension in the eyes of the representatives of 100 alien species. Instead, there was something new. Respect and perhaps a hint of fear. Sarah kept her expression neutral as she stood at the center of the massive, circular platform. Her formal uniform was immaculate, her posture steady. She was not here to gloat nor to seek revenge. Humanity had prepared for centuries not to conquer, but to survive, and now to lead. High Speaker Zelen, his once gleaming scales now a muted shade of gray, addressed the assembly. His voice carried a weight of hard-earned humility. Representatives of the Concordat, he began. The treaty before us today marks a turning point in our shared history. For the first time, we welcome a new member, not as a protectorate, not as a client state, but as a full and equal partner. Murmurs swept through the assembly. The old guard, the species that had long benefited from the Concordat's hierarchical structure, shifted uncomfortably. Others, those who had lived under the shadow of domination, leaned forward, hope flickering in their eyes. Sarah remained composed behind her. Admiral James Harrison stood silent and imposing, a living symbol of the strength that had forced this unprecedented change. His uniform bore no decorations save for the insignia of Earth, a simple reminder that true strength needed no embellishment. High Speaker Zelen continued, "Some among you question this decision. You argue that one demonstration of military prowess should not overturn 10,000 years of tradition. To you, I say this Earth has demonstrated not only military strength, but a level of strategic thinking and technological advancement that we failed to recognize. Their achievement is not merely in defeating our fleet, but in hiding their true capabilities for centuries while preparing for every contingency." Sarah stepped forward and with a gesture activated a holographic display that filled the air above the platform trade routes. Defensive agreements, technological exchanges between Earth and several of the Concordats. Smaller members all negotiated in the few weeks since the confrontation. Earth had moved swiftly not to conquer, but to build. The Earth Alliance does not seek dominion. Sarah said, her voice clear and steady. We seek partnership. We seek mutual respect. She shifted the display to show advanced medical technologies, quantum communication systems, energy innovations developed by humanity and now shared freely with their new allies. Not weapons, not tools of conquest, but gifts of progress. We offer our hand, not our chains, she said. We offer the future. The assembly stirred. Representatives of smaller worlds whispered among themselves, recognizing opportunities long denied to them under the old Concordat order. But there was more. Sarah knew. The truth had to be laid bare if real change was to take root. She changed the display again. This time it showed Concordat battle plans, secret deployments near independent star systems, preparation for systematic conquest. Gasps rippled through the assembly. Faces turned to each other in shock. Suspicion confirmed by undeniable proof. We found these plans within the Concordat's military database, Sarah said. Her voice hardened slightly. The High Speaker has acknowledged their existence and agreed to their immediate termination. The chamber erupted in noise. Accusations, questions, anger, and fear. Sarah let it go on for a moment, then raised her hand for silence. Earth could have exposed these plans earlier, she said. We could have turned the member worlds against the leadership. We could have let the Concordat collapse into chaos. Instead, we chose a different path. We demonstrated our strength, but tempered it with restraint. We forced change without destruction. She turned to face High Speaker Zelen directly, because despite its flaws, the Concordat brought stability to much of the galaxy. It does not need to be destroyed, it needs to be reformed. The High Speaker inclined his head in acknowledgement, and that reform begins today, he said. The treaty before us not only welcomes Earth as an equal partner, it restructures the Concordat itself. We will no longer be an empire in all but name. We will become what we should have been from the beginning, a true alliance of equals. The assembly began its deliberations. Representatives debated, questioned, protested. Some sought to cling to the old ways, others to embrace the new. But the momentum was undeniable. The old order had cracked under its own weight, and Earth had shown a different way. As the debates raged, Sarah received a private transmission from Admiral Harrison's Shadow Fleet. Reports all Concordat battle groups have stood down. No signs of further resistance. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Not of triumph, but of satisfaction. Humanity had achieved what had once seemed impossible. Not through domination, not through capitulation, but through strength tempered by wisdom. The galaxy was changing, and Earth was at the heart of that change. As the assembly moved toward ratifying the treaty, Sarah thought of the generations that had come before generations, who had labored in secret, who had dreamed of a future where humanity could stand among the stars, as equals, not as beggars, not as prey. Their work had not been in vain. The age of shadows was over. The dawn of a new era had begun. The ratification of the treaty marked a moment that would ripple through every corner of the galaxy. Within days, news spread across the stars faster than any diplomatic mission could have achieved. Worlds that had long suffered under the quiet domination of the Concordat looked toward Earth with new eyes. No longer was humanity seen as a backwater civilization struggling to find its place among the stars. Now it was recognized as a power one that had reshaped the very foundations of Galactic politics without firing a single shot in vengeance. Ambassador Sarah Chen knew the work was only beginning. The victory had been secured, but maintaining and growing that victory would be a far greater challenge than winning the initial confrontation. With the Concordat's old hierarchies crumbling, many species found themselves at a crossroads. Some embraced the change eagerly. Others regarded Earth's rise with suspicion and fear. Sarah moved swiftly, establishing diplomatic embassies on independent worlds, reaching out to minor Concordat members, offering technology trade and, above all, respect. Every gesture was carefully calibrated, every negotiation handled with precision. Humanity had not spent 2 centuries preparing simply to win a battle. They had prepared to lead Admiral James Harrison. Meanwhile, focused on the security aspect of their newfound prominence. Shadow Fleet did not stand down after the treaty was signed. Instead, it repositioned itself discreetly, maintaining a presence at key points across the galaxy. Earth would not rule by fear, but neither would it leave itself vulnerable ever again. The first test of Earth's new status came sooner than expected. A coalition of former Concordat hardliners, outraged by the sudden shift in power, attempted to rally military forces to reassert the old order. They underestimated not just Earth, but the changing mood of the galaxy. Sarah stood before the emergency session of the Grand Assembly, her voice steady as she addressed the gathering of species who now looked to Earth for guidance. Earth does not seek dominion, she said again and again. We seek cooperation. We seek a future where no world need fear assimilation or conquest. Her words found fertile ground among those who had chafed under Concordat rule for centuries. When the coalition forces began to mobilize, Shadow Fleet moved with quiet efficiency, neutralizing the threat before it could fully form, capturing ships, seizing command centers, all without a single shot fired in anger. The galaxy took notice. Earth's strength was undeniable, but it was the restraint that impressed even the most skeptical observers. Humanity had the power to crush, but chose instead to offer partnership. As weeks turned into months, a new alliance began to take shape, not a recreation of the old Concordat, but something truly different. Representatives from dozens of species came together under the Earth Alliance Charter, a document crafted with input from across the galaxy, emphasizing mutual respect shared. Advancement and collective security. Sarah Chen presided over the founding ceremony held not on Earth, but aboard a massive neutral station in orbit around a blue-white gas giant. The symbolism was clear. This new alliance belonged to all who chose to join, not just to humanity. Among the first signatories were species long marginalized by the Concordat: the crystalline Valari, the aquatic Nimari, the insectoid Zenthic. Each brought unique strengths and perspectives, enriching the new alliance. From its inception, Admiral Harrison addressed the new council simply and directly. "We are stronger together," he said, "but strength must be tempered by wisdom and compassion. We have seen what arrogance brings. We have seen what unchecked power creates. We must be better." The words resonated. Throughout the station, hope bloomed where once there had been only resignation. Still, not all were eager to embrace the new order. Some worlds remained wary, fearful that Earth's rise heralded merely a new form of dominance. Sarah understood their hesitation and worked tirelessly to build trust, visiting hesitant systems personally, answering their concerns with patience and transparency. In private meetings with skeptical leaders, Sarah often spoke candidly. "Earth remembers what it was to be overlooked," she would say. "We remember what it felt like to reach out and be ignored. We will not become that which we fought against." And slowly, steadily, the new alliance grew. Meanwhile, on Earth, great changes were underway. The revelation of Shadowfleet and the true extent of humanity's preparations shook the global population to its core. But instead of fear, there was pride. A deep, enduring pride that humanity had not merely survived, but had done so with honor. Cities once divided by old rivalries now saw themselves as part of a greater whole. Scientists, engineers, diplomats, and artists alike surged forward with new purpose. The stars were no longer distant dreams. They were within reach. Educational programs expanded, focusing on xenolinguistics, interstellar law, quantum sciences. Entire generations began preparing for lives among the stars, not as colonists or conquerors, but as ambassadors, bridge builders, peacekeepers. The spirit of unity that had been forged in the long years of preparation now blossomed fully on the galactic stage. Earth's influence continued to grow. Earth sponsored relief missions to war, torn worlds rebuilt, infrastructure devastated by centuries of Concordat exploitation, and shared technological advancements that leveled the playing field for emerging civilizations. For the first time in living memory, entire sectors of the galaxy saw cooperation triumph over domination. Still, Sarah and Harrison knew that vigilance was necessary. The old ways did not vanish overnight. There were still those who plotted in the shadows, those who resented humanity's rise. Those threats were met with a firm but measured response. Diplomacy first, strength only when absolutely necessary. Shadowfleet remained in operation, a silent guardian watching over the fragile new order. Among the many initiatives launched by the Earth Alliance was the establishment of the Stellar Academy, an interspecies institution dedicated to training future leaders, diplomats, scientists, and explorers. It quickly became a symbol of the new era, a place where young minds from every corner of the galaxy could learn from each other, forge bonds, and dream of a future not defined by fear but by possibility. Sarah Chen gave the keynote address at the Academy's opening ceremony, her voice carrying across the vast hall filled with representatives from dozens of worlds. "The future belongs to those who build it together," she said. "We have the chance to create something truly extraordinary, not by erasing our differences, but by embracing them, by learning from each other, by standing together." Her words were met with thunderous applause. Back aboard Earth's orbital command centers, Admiral Harrison worked quietly to ensure that peace would not come at the cost of preparedness. War games were conducted discreetly, defensive networks, expanded treaties signed with strategic partners. Earth had learned its lessons well. Hope without strength was a fragile thing. Strength without wisdom was a curse. Humanity would walk the line between them with care. One evening, as Sarah and Harrison met aboard the Edemus to review progress, they shared a rare moment of reflection. "Did you ever think we would get this far?" Harrison asked, gazing out at the stars. Sarah smiled, a small, tired smile. "Honestly," she said, "there were days I wondered if we would even survive. And yet here we are," Harrison said. "Not just surviving, thriving." Sarah nodded. "But the work never ends," she said. "We have won a chance at a better future. That is all, a chance. We will make the most of it." Harrison said simply. Together they turned back to their work, knowing that the path ahead would be long and difficult, but also filled with promise. In the years that followed, the Earth Alliance solidified its role as a stabilizing force in the galaxy. Old hatred slowly faded, replaced by new bonds forged in shared endeavor and mutual respect. And through it all, humanity remained true to the ideals that had brought them this far. Preparedness, unity, wisdom, compassion. Generations would remember the day Earth stepped into the light. Not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals. A new dawn had come, and it had been earned through courage, foresight, and the unyielding belief that a better future was not given but built by the hands of those brave enough to reach for it. In the decades that followed the historic confrontation and the formation of the Earth Alliance, the galaxy entered a period of transformation unlike any it had ever experienced. Change that had once seemed impossible now unfolded steadily, reshaping not just political alliances, but the very way species thought about cooperation, leadership, and the future. Humanity stood at the center of it all, not as rulers or tyrants, but as steadfast partners guiding the galaxy through the painful but necessary process of evolution. Ambassador Sarah Chen, now the High Commissioner of Interstellar Relations, dedicated her life to maintaining the delicate balance she had helped create. Traveling from world to world, station to station, she forged new agreements, mediated old disputes, and championed the cause of equal partnership among all species. Her message remained consistent. Earth does not seek to lead through dominance. We lead through example. Under her guidance, the Earth Alliance grew stronger, integrating new members, each bringing their own strengths, perspectives, and cultures. The diversity of the Alliance became its greatest asset, each voice contributing to a chorus of progress. Admiral James Harrison, meanwhile, continued his tireless work behind the scenes, ensuring that Earth's security infrastructure evolved alongside its expanding influence. Shadow Fleet was no longer a mere hidden force, but an acknowledged part of the Alliance defense strategy, albeit still operating with utmost discretion. The threats that arose in the wake of the Concordat's fall were many and varied. Some were remnants of the old regime, desperate to reclaim lost power. Others were opportunistic warlords seeking to exploit the chaos left in the power vacuum. Each time, humanity and its allies responded swiftly and decisively, not with overwhelming force, but with precision diplomacy, and where necessary, carefully measured military action. The message was clear. Earth and its allies would protect the new order, not for their own gain, but for the future they had all chosen to build. On Earth itself, the transformation was just as profound. The once divided nations had solidified their unity under the Earth Alliance banner. Differences of culture and philosophy were not erased, but celebrated. Humanity had learned that true strength lay not in uniformity, but in understanding. Education systems evolved, preparing young minds not just for life on Earth, but for life among the stars. Students studied alien histories, languages, and sciences with the same rigor they once reserved for their own ancient pasts. New cities rose on the surface of the Moon and Mars, gleaming examples of interspecies collaboration designed by architects from dozens of worlds, powered by fusion reactors engineered through joint research and connected by quantum communication arrays. These colonies stood as monuments to what could be achieved when old boundaries were cast aside. The Stellar Academy flourished, producing generations of leader scientists, explorers, and diplomats who carried the ideals of the Alliance into every corner of the galaxy. And yet Sarah and Harrison both knew that true stability required more than good intentions and advanced technology. They launched the Initiative for Enduring Peace, a multi-generational project aimed at institutionalizing the principles of mutual respect and shared responsibility. The initiative created interspecies councils, research partnerships, and cultural exchanges binding the members of the Alliance, together not through treaties alone but through genuine interdependence. One of the crowning achievements of the initiative was the establishment of the Rings of Unity, vast orbital stations positioned strategically throughout the galaxy, serving as hubs of commerce, diplomacy, and defense. Each ring was governed collectively by representatives from member worlds, symbolizing the idea that no one species should dominate the future. Sarah Chen often visited the rings, marveling at the vibrant markets, where human engineers bartered innovations with Xenthic artisans, where Valari scholars debated philosophy with Nimari biologists, where children of a dozen species played together, oblivious to the divisions their ancestors had once clung to so tightly. In her speeches, Sarah spoke often of the past, not to glorify it, but to remind the galaxy of the cost of arrogance and the fragility of peace. "We must remember," she would say, "that strength without wisdom leads to ruin, that unity without respect leads to tyranny. We have been given a rare opportunity to choose differently. Let us not squander it." Her words resonated far beyond the halls of power, carried across the stars by those who believed in the dream of a better future. Not all challenges could be solved with words. Of course, piracy, corruption, and occasional border disputes tested the resolve of the Alliance. But Earth and its partners responded each time with the same steadfast commitment to principle. When rogue fleets threatened trade routes, they were met not with annihilation, but with carefully calibrated responses designed to neutralize the threat without escalating conflict. When worlds strayed toward isolationism, Earth sent envoys, not ultimatums. When planets suffered disasters, relief fleets arrived bearing supplies, and hope not conditions and demands. This careful balance of strength and compassion became the hallmark of the Earth Alliance, setting it apart from the old empires and hegemonies that had ruled through fear and exploitation. As the decades turned into centuries, the legacy of those early decisions became clear. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts, still inequalities, still moments when fear and ambition threatened to unravel progress. But there was also hope, resilience, and a shared belief that a different future was possible. On the bicentennial anniversary of the Treaty of New Geneva, the Grand Assembly convened once again, this time in the Ring of Unity designated as the Galactic capital. Delegates from hundreds of worlds gathered to celebrate the achievements of the Alliance and to reaffirm their commitment to its ideals. Sarah Chen, now elderly but still sharp, stood before them once more, her presence commanding as ever. "We are not perfect," she said, her voice resonant across the chamber. "Nor will we ever be. Perfection is a myth, but progress is real, and it is built not by those who seek power for themselves, but by those who seek to uplift all." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces, each representing a world, a people, a future. "We have chosen a harder path," she continued, "a path of cooperation, compromise, and shared destiny. It demands more of us than the old ways ever did. It demands patience, understanding, and above all, courage." The chamber erupted in applause, not just polite acknowledgement, but genuine, heartfelt agreement. Later, as Sarah walked through the gardens that wound through the Ring of Unity, she was joined by Admiral Harrison. His hair silvered, his posture still. Proud. "We did it, James," she said softly. "Not without cost, but we did it." He nodded. "We laid the foundation. Now it is up to them to build higher." They stood together in silence for a moment, watching a group of students, human, Valari, Nimari, and more, laughing together as they worked on a shared project, their youthful enthusiasm a testament to the future that had been made possible by sacrifice and vision. As the stars turned above them, Sarah allowed herself a rare moment of peace. The galaxy would face new challenges, new storms, new nights of doubt. But the dawn had come, and it would not be so easily extinguished. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through conquest, but through perseverance, wisdom, and the unshakable belief that the future could be brighter than the past. And in the hearts of all those who now looked to Earth and to each other as partners, equals, and friends, that belief burned brighter than any sun. Centuries after the Treaty of New Geneva, the impact of humanity's rise was still felt in every corner of the galaxy. The Earth Alliance had grown into more than a political entity. It had become a symbol, a testament to the idea that strength and compassion could coexist, that diversity and unity were not contradictions, but complements. The galaxy was not without its challenges. Old rivalries still flared from time to time. New threats emerged from distant, uncharted sectors. The work of peace was never truly finished, but the foundation laid by those early visionaries held. Be firm. The Rings of Unity stood as monuments to the enduring legacy of cooperation. Their corridors bustled with life and energy. Humans walked alongside Valari, Nimari, Zenthic, and dozens of other species, exchanging ideas, technology, and culture. Trade flowed freely, knowledge was shared without fear, and children of many worlds grew up knowing that the stars belonged to them all, not just to the powerful. At the heart of this great tapestry of civilizations, Earth remained a beacon, not because of its military might, though that remained formidable, but because of its principles. Humanity had proven that the future did not have to be shaped by conquest or subjugation. It could be built on mutual respect, shared dreams, and the courage to stand together in the face of adversity. The Stellar Academy had expanded its reach, with branches on countless worlds, training new generations of diplomats, scientists, engineers, and explorers. Students studied the history of the galaxy not as a tale of endless war and domination, but as a story of hard-won unity, of the countless struggles and triumphs that had led to the present age. Among the most revered courses was the history of the Earth Alliance, where students learned not just about the battles fought, but about the ideals defended, about the long, slow work of building trust across light years of distance and across gulfs of difference. The name Sarah Chen was spoken with reverence. Her speeches, her writings, her unwavering commitment to a better future. were studied, analyzed, and emulated by those who sought to lead without losing their soul. Her legacy lived on not just in history books, but in the living, breathing reality of the galaxy she had helped to create. Admiral James Harrison, too, was remembered with honor. His quiet strength, his strategic brilliance, and his unshakable belief in the importance of readiness, tempered by restraint, set the standard for generations of military and civilian leaders alike. Monuments to their contributions dotted the stars, but the greatest tribute to their efforts was not carved in stone or etched in metal. It lived in the thriving worlds, the bustling stations, the peaceful corridors of the Rings of Unity. And yet those who walked those corridors never forgot the lessons of the past. They knew that vigilance was necessary, that peace was a garden that required constant tending. They understood that unity was not a static achievement, but a dynamic, ever-evolving commitment. One such tending took place on the 1000th anniversary of the Earth Alliance's. Founding leaders from across the galaxy gathered once again, this time at the newly constructed Solara Nexus, a colossal station orbiting a sun-like star at the crossroads of multiple major trade routes. The Solara Nexus was more than a hub of commerce and diplomacy. It was a living symbol of the Alliance philosophy. Designed collaboratively by architects from 100 worlds, it combined aesthetic traditions from every member species into a harmonious. Whole gardens of Nimari coral blooms merged seamlessly with Valari crystal towers. Human greenery flourished alongside xanthic hive sculptures. At the center of the station stood the Hall of Legacy, a vast open space where holographic displays recounted the journey from the dark days of isolation to the bright age of cooperation. Here on the anniversary, representatives gathered to reaffirm their shared commitment and to look forward to the future. The keynote address was delivered by a young ambassador from Earth, a descendant of the generation that had first stepped into the stars. Her voice was steady, filled with the quiet strength that had come to define humanity's role. "We gather here today," she said, "not to celebrate an ending, but to honor a beginning that continues with every act of courage, every choice of cooperation over conflict, every dream shared across the distances between our worlds." She spoke of the sacrifices made, the obstacles overcome, and the vision that had guided humanity and its allies through the storms of history. We remember those who taught us that strength must serve compassion, that unity must honor diversity, that leadership must be an act of service. As she spoke, images of Sarah Chen, James Harrison, and countless unnamed heroes filled the Hall of Legacy, faces of every species, every background united by the common cause of a better galaxy. "We stand here," she continued, "not as rulers, not as conquerors, but as stewards of a future entrusted to us by those who dared to believe that the stars could be shared by all." Her words echoed through the station, carried by quantum relays to every world, every station, every ship that bore the Earth Alliance insignia. Across the galaxy, beings paused in their work, in their travels, in their lives, to listen and to remember. On distant frontier worlds, settlers paused their labor to gaze at the stars with renewed hope. In the bustling corridors of trade stations, merchants and travelers nodded in agreement. In the halls of learning, young students took inspiration for dreams yet to be realized. The speech ended not with a grandiose declaration, but with a simple call to action. Let us build, let us protect, let us dream, let us stand together. And the galaxy answered. New projects were launched, initiatives aimed at deeper exploration, sustainable development, cultural preservation, and interspecies. Understanding the Earth Alliance pledged resources to assist fledgling civilizations, reaching out to ensure that no world would face the dangers of isolation and exploitation alone. New colonies were founded with full representation, in the alliance governance structures, ensuring that even the smallest voices could be heard and heeded. New technologies were shared, breakthroughs in medicine, energy, and communication offered freely in the spirit of mutual advancement. And through it all, the ideals that had guided humanity's emergence remained at the core of the galaxy. Ethos, strength used wisely, vigilance tempered with mercy, unity built on respect, diversity embraced as a source of strength. Historians of the future would look back on this era and marvel not merely at the achievements, not merely at the wonders built and the frontiers explored, but at the spirit that endured. They would see a species that had risen from a single small world on the edge of the galaxy, a species that had once been ignored, dismissed, and underestimated, a species that had refused to let history repeat its darkest chapters, a species that had chosen to build rather than conquer, to unite rather than dominate, to inspire rather than impose. And they would see how that choice had changed the destiny of countless worlds, countless lives, countless futures in the quiet corners of the galaxy on nights when the stars blazed brightly above newly settled worlds. Old and young alike would tell stories of how it all began, stories of a planet called Earth, stories of a people who dared to believe that the impossible was possible, stories of a future forged not by the strongest or the richest, but by those with the courage to reach beyond themselves. And as those stories spread, carried by the light of distant suns across the endless night, they would weave a legacy greater than any monument, greater than any empire, a legacy of hope, a legacy of unity, a legacy of humanity. As the centuries unfolded and the memory of Earth's rise transitioned from living memory to recorded history, the lessons of that pivotal era continued to resonate throughout the galaxy. The story of humanity's journey from isolation to leadership was taught in schools, retold in cultural ceremonies, and referenced in the councils of power. It was a story not of inevitability, but of choice, not of destiny, but of determination. On countless worlds under the light of distant stars, the question persisted. What made humanity different? What allowed a species once ignored by the greater galactic powers to not only survive, but to thrive and to lead? The answers were as complex and multifaceted as the people themselves. Some pointed to human resilience, the stubborn refusal to surrender, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Others spoke of human adaptability, the ability to learn from every encounter, to evolve with every challenge. But those who studied the era most closely understood a deeper truth. Humanity succeeded not because they were stronger, not because they were smarter, but because they chose a different path at a critical moment. They chose preparation over complacency, unity over division, wisdom over arrogance. They did not wait for the galaxy to accept them. They did not demand recognition or power. They built their strength quietly, patiently. They studied, they planned, they hoped. But above all, they prepared. And when the moment came, when the Concordat reached out, not with friendship, but with chains, humanity was ready not only to defend itself, but to offer a better way. This lesson became the cornerstone of the Earth Alliance's philosophy, and through it, the guiding principle of the new galactic order. Strength must always serve a greater purpose. Preparation is the foundation of true peace. Unity is the armor that defends against the storms of history. Wisdom is the compass that guides through the unknown. Compassion is the bridge that turns survival into flourishing. These were not mere slogans etched onto monuments. They were living truths embodied in the actions of generations that followed. Every treaty signed, every alliance forged, every mission of aid and exploration carried the imprint of those early choices made by people who understood that the future would not be given freely, but must be earned through sacrifice and vision. One of the most enduring institutions of this new era was the Hall of Remembrance located at the heart of the Solara Nexus. Visitors from all over the galaxy came to walk its corridors, lined with holographic exhibits detailing humanity's journey and the early years of the Earth Alliance. In one of its central chambers, a simple inscription greeted every traveler: "Prepare with wisdom, stand with unity, lead with compassion." Beneath those words, no names were listed, no battles recounted, no conquests celebrated, only a single image, a view of Earth from orbit. Fragile, beautiful, solitary, yet alive with infinite potential. Every year on the anniversary of the Treaty of New Geneva, delegates from every member world gathered at the hall to reaffirm their commitment to the principles that had reshaped their civilization. Among the most moving traditions was the recitation of the Founder's Oath, a simple pledge first spoken by Sarah Chen during the founding of the Earth Alliance. "We stand together not for power but for peace, not for conquest but for community, not for domination but for destiny, shared and chosen by all who dare to dream." This oath transcended cultures, languages, and species. It became a sacred commitment to the idea that the stars belonged not to the strongest, but to the wisest, to those willing to reach beyond themselves in the service of a greater good. The real miracle of Earth's rise was not that they won a battle or outmaneuvered an empire. It was that they chose to offer their strength as a foundation. Not a weapon. They chose to build rather than to burn, to lead rather than to rule, to inspire rather than to impose. This choice changed everything. It turned potential adversaries into partners, rivals, into allies, strangers into friends. It showed the galaxy that another way was possible, and once seen, such a path could never be unseen. Generations later, young students at the Stellar Academy still studied the early diplomatic missions, the deployment of the Shadow Fleet, the careful balancing of strength and mercy. But what captured their imagination most was not the tactics or the technology. It was the spirit, the refusal to surrender to fear or arrogance, the insistence that a better future could be forged by those willing to pay the price of vigilance and hope. In their essays and debates, they often asked themselves, what will be our moment of choice? When will we be called to stand not for ourselves alone, but for all? And in that question, the true legacy of humanity endured. Because history was not a fixed monument. It was a living river shaped by every generation that stepped into its current. The story of Earth's rise reminded the galaxy that while circumstances could differ, while challenges could evolve, the fundamental truths remained. Every civilization would face its moment of testing. Every world would be given its chance to choose between fear and hope, between selfishness and solidarity, and every choice would echo across the stars, leaving footprints not just in the dust of planets, but in the hearts of all who followed. Looking back from the vantage point of centuries, it became clear that humanity's greatest achievement was not their technology or their fleets or their alliances. It was the culture of preparation, unity, wisdom, and compassion they had planted like seeds across the galaxy, seeds that took root in 1,000 different soils, growing into a forest of hope, resilience, and shared destiny. Today, as we reflect on the path humanity chose, we are reminded that greatness is not a matter of might or brilliance alone. It is a matter of heart, of courage, of vision. The story of Earth teaches us that we are not bound by the mistakes of our ancestors, nor doomed to repeat the cycles of conquest and collapse. We can choose differently. We can build a future where strength serves peace, where preparation guards hope, where unity shields diversity, where wisdom lights the unknown, where compassion bridges the stars. But only if we remember, only if we choose as they once chose, only if we dare to believe that the best days are not behind us but ahead, in the quiet darkness of space, aboard ships sailing between worlds, on colonies rising from barren moons, in cities buzzing with the voices of 100 species, the legacy of Earth lives on, not as a monument to a single world, but as a beacon for all who look to the stars and dream of what might be. And in that dream, humanity endures forever.